All right, all right. What's going on, everybody? Happy Saturday. It's 2 o'clock, and we have another episode of Comic Collector Origins about to kick off. I am Justin, aka No Good Comics. If you guys are not familiar with the show, I like to talk with the community, the comic book community. Get all aspects from the Instagram side of things, the YouTubers, and really just come together to learn a little bit more about the industry, or a little bit more about the individual. And how they got started with collecting comic books, their first appearance with comics, their origin story, and so on and so forth. So, really excited for today because I have a really good friend of mine, JP Collects, as his name on over on Instagram, that I'll be having on the show today. So I'm going to bring in JP now, and we'll kick this off. So there he is. What's up, man?
Not much. Hanging out on a Saturday, so
Nice. I really like your setup, man. I like that. That is that Jenny Frison behind you
the
there?
Wonder Woman. Yeah, that's Jenny Frison. I picked
Beautiful.
that up at the last con at C2E2 this time. So
Oh man,
the last con thing. So yeah,
I saw pictures.
Original Jenny Frison art. I had to settle for the print.
That's all right, dude. Hey, sometimes the prints work better in terms of showing off. Especially getting the bigger size ones like that. Yeah. So. That's a great cover too. I remember when that came out. So good stuff.
I actually have that cover in a slab actually. So
oh nice. Yeah. I would say it's not too. It came out like within the past year, I think, right?
Yeah, no, it's not too.
Yeah,
it's like like maybe year and a half, 2 years ago. So.
Oh, nice. Signed and everything. Did you get to meet her, or you met her there?
Yeah, I did. I've actually got stuff signed by her. Both times I went to C2E2 the last couple of years. That one actually was, I did not get my book signed and slabbed. I didn't do any of that this time. Actually, Jimmy the Geek Aficionado did that while he was there.
Oh, nice.
We got him back. I ended up buying it from him because I had the print.
That's probably a better, easier way to go.
Given the story I just told you, yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, man, for coming on the show. I'm excited to have you on here because I think you play a really big role in just the comic book community in terms of bringing people together.
I don't know about that.
No, man, you definitely. I always see you everywhere. You're in the chats. You're on other people's shows. I know you have a collection of your own shows as well. That we can talk a little bit more. But I love what you're doing, man. I love the content that you put out there. And you're part of this community of some really great people, and you're one of them. So
that's thanks. Really kind to say. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So, as I said before, for anyone that's new to watching, this is about the individual's origins. So, JP, I'm going to start by, really diving in to your background. Before we do, let me say hello to the chat really quick.
Chat out.
Do see some people I recognize here. JP and JL. Kavi says, "What's going on, Kavi? Good to see you."
Hey,
Kavi. We got Backseat Driver in the house. Okay. Always good to see you, my friend. John's Comics with Kids. Thank you, sir, for sharing this earlier. Not sure I know that guy. I hear you. JP is in the house. There's a lot of J's. Ruben Guzman, what's going on, man? Yes, sir. Good to see you as always. Very cool. So, we'll kind of be going in and out of the chat. Guys, feel free to put any questions up or comments that you have, and we'll highlight them as we go. JP, feel free to stop and talk about anything that you want at any given point.
Okay.
So let's get into it. And my first question is just, what is your background in terms of how you got started? How old were you? And tell us a little bit about like who introduced you or what introduced you to comic books.
So I don't really remember. I had, when I was a kid, like 5, 6, 7 years old, I remember having some Disney comics. Like I remember those, right? And then like I had at home, and I have no idea what happened to those. My mom tossed them when I was a little kid. I have no idea because I didn't really collect comics as a kid. Like my origin though, were probably in like getting into comics were Super Friends and Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Like those cartoons. Yeah. And then I would go, like when we'd go to the grocery store, it was a completely different time, but I'd go to the grocery store with my mom. And at the time there was the magazines are up front by the checkout, and there'd be the spinner rack of comic books. And I would literally like 7, 8, 9 years old, would go into the magazines, into the comic books. My mom would go grocery shop, and then when she got done, she would grab me and we would leave.
Nice. Yeah. You just kill your time there.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and it was like, here's this 6, 7-year-old standing by himself, and no cell phones and no
Yeah, right.
I'm by the door, like the magazine stuff are not that far from the door, nothing like that. And
Yep.
it never thought twice about it,
Yep.
And that was in Columbia. Like we lived in a small town, but like the town we go to the grocery store was Columbia, which was a 60, 70,000 people college town. And it was, never thought twice about it. But I would so I never bought any of those comics that I read on the spinner.
Right.
I would go like once a week and I would just read it, whatever was new on the thing that I hadn't read before, and put it back. And then, and so that was really how I took in comics all through my childhood, even into high school. Like when I was in high school and could drive on my own, I would literally go to if I went to the mall or something, I'd go into the bookstore, which, yes, some of you probably don't remember malls or bookstores.
That's right.
And I would go to the back because the spinner rack would be at the back of the little bookstore. And I'd go back there and I'd do the same damn thing.
Hell yeah.
Like 15, 16, 17-year-old.
That's great.
So, I mean, but yeah, it was those cartoons. It was a Batman movie in '89. It was a Superman movie. Those were the things that got me interested. And then once I found them, I just kept going back to them.
Right.
But I didn't really start collecting in terms of, and I don't even really call it collecting. What I did when I got into college is when I actually started buying comic books and not just reading them.
Right.
And that really started. I had a friend of mine in college that was into them, and he would go and buy them. So we'd go to the comic book store, and I started reading there and started buying comics and started keeping them and taking care of them. But I was mostly just a reader. I wasn't like looking for specific, whatever I was reading is what I bought, and that was it. So
right. No slabs or anything like that.
Oh, well, this was the 90s. This was late 90s.
Right.
There were no slabs.
Not even there yet. Yeah.
No, we weren't even there yet. I'm old. So, not as old as John, if he's still in the chat, but I'm old.
Oh gosh. Well, that's cool. That's so I'm always curious about, and I know exactly what you mean when your parents go off grocery shopping and they drop you off at the reading area. And same thing. You didn't need to buy anything. You just you could flip through everything and then leave.
I read them all, put them back, which is why the books in those spinner racks were notoriously for being just beat the because that's what there was other kids. I mean, I wasn't the only one that did that kind of thing. So
totally. So when was it then that you really started to dive into the I guess the environment of everything? Like tell us a little bit maybe of a first experience of going to a Comic-Con, maybe a large Comic-Con of some sort.
Okay, so I collected and read all through college and into grad school. Then when I came back and I moved to where I live now and got the job I have now, that I've had now for longer than I'm willing to admit, I think that will take me. But is that it's a small town. There were no comic shops here. There was no place to really get comics. So I just got out of them for a really long time. And it wasn't till what year was it now? Fall of 2017.
Oh wow!
My sister moved. Like they bought it. They'd been living in a condo. They just had their second kid. They bought a house and they moved. And it's literally like a block from a comic book store.
Oh wow!
Which is just this crazy thing. So we walked down there one day, like just for the heck of it. While I was up there helping her move and stuff. And I went in, I bought a few trades and stuff. I was like, some characters that I had collected before, and let's read. Well, then, I don't remember. I got a thing at the time. I was into the Funkos. I'd gotten into Funkos because I just something to collect, something pop culture.
Sure.
And because I've always been interested, but I just had been away from it. I'd done some digital reading once upon a time, when the New 52 started and that kind of stuff. But I had again, I'd always just read stuff. I never really considered myself a collector.
Mm-hmm.
And they were having I'd seen a thing for they were doing Halloween Comic Fest or something. So I was like, well, how close is a comic book store? Because I hadn't looked in forever. And there was a new one about 45 minutes up the road, which is like not that bad. And there was
too bad.
Up toward Kansas City on the south side of Kansas City that I was like, okay, I can get to those reasonable. And I went. And then I went back. And then I went back. And then
you got the itch.
And then by spring of 18, I went to my first con was Planet Con in Kansas City. At this point, I had not discovered Comic YouTube yet.
Okay.
I was watching Funko stuff on YouTube, and I was still primarily went there to look for Funkos.
Okay.
I had a couple of Funkos I ended up getting signed and some other stuff. But I took a few comic books with me, and I got a few of those signed. And by the time I was done there, and then I went to C2E2 because my sister lives in Chicago. I should in the suburbs of Chicago.
Nice.
And so I went up, visited her, and we went to C2E2.
Mm-hmm.
And like at that point, I was hooked. And then about that same time is when I found Comic Tom and Reggie and Thanatos, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah.
The more like I watched on YouTube and the more I seen other people collecting, it's like, oh, I need that. And I want to, and it was just kind of so yeah, it's probably 2017, 2018 before I really became a comic collector. I had all these comics from the late 90s, early 2000s in my basement in a filing cabinet in bags of boards, all, like for 20 years that I hadn't touched. And but I'd packed them to Virginia and back from grad school because, most of them, a bunch of them I got rid of, some of which I wish I hadn't. Some of which were just 90s books and it was fine. But but yeah, so at that point, and amazingly, those books were a lot of those books are in really, really good shape still. And it's just good. But it wasn't really till 2018 that I started collecting comic books and buying stuff that was other than what was coming out that week to read.
Okay. Right. Cool, man. And it's crazy because you mentioned 2017. I only got really engulfed in collecting and reading comics a year later than you did. Yeah. So it's like I've had this discussion with other people on the show too, where I feel a lot of us anyways have come back into the hobby between 2017 and 2019. There's just been this surgence of fans that are, that used to collect or they used to read when they were little, or whatever. And now they're back into it, which is really cool.
And I will say I'd started collecting the Funko stuff. I was watching the Funko stuff on YouTube just out of boredom mostly, and I got the comic book thing and I had because I prefer the stories than and I had a bunch of Funkos. I'm like, what am I going to do with all these? Where am I going to put them? And it was and I started making that shift to comics, but really Reggie and Matt probably more so than Tom, but those three, and then sort of the explosion of people that came after them, and John and White Whale and Kavi, Comic Books NYC, and others whose channels I found after starting watching those in 2018 really is what drove me to really start collecting. That, I don't know, those two things go hand in hand. It was I suddenly had access to them again and the desire, and I actually had a little bit of expendable income, not much, but a little bit that I could put toward it. And then I was watching this stuff and I enjoyed these people's personality, and I enjoyed for a long time I sat in the chat and never commented, but listening to the discussion about comics, and then eventually I started commenting, and those two things go hand in hand for me. The comic YouTube and collecting came about at the same time, for me, and I feel like it came about where this community has gone really started at that same point with some of those things. It's amazing how many people you talk to that the comic YouTube side of it at least started with Bueller and Tom and Reggie and that same group of guys. And
the big names.
Yeah.
Man, that's cool. That is cool. I do want to say a quick hello. I see a few more people in the chat too. Gabby, California Blend. Gabby. Always a pleasure to see you.
Behind me here.
Nice. Yeah,
that's short covers. This one here. Oh, you can't see it.
Bring that down.
This one.
Nice, nice.
Gabby piece that Unruly Simeon bought for me from her.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Gabby
Yeah.
just put up a bunch more on
I know I haven't.
her page.
Unfortunately, I haven't been able to I've been wanting to get another piece from her, and I just haven't made it happen yet. So
Same, same. I see Mercy Collectibles is in the house all the way from Sweden.
nice.
Good to see you, my friend. Thanks for stopping in. And poor Mike is in the house as well. He says you're a great dude. Oh, whoa! I just jumped the.
Oh, StreamYard does that.
Yeah, just jumped the chat there. We got Rod. Hello, Rod. Good to see you. And Alan's in here. He was my guest last week. We had a Halloween episode. It was fun.
John.
Clown comics.
John made a comment about him because clearly I'm shorter than you because look at us side by side.
Yeah.
Because TJ apparently thought I was like 5 foot tall because of the way where my camera sits and like everything else. So when he saw the Bear Island thing and he found out I was like 6 foot tall, he was like, "What?"
I remember you mentioning something like that. You're like, yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I wouldn't know either if you're that tall.
Apparently, I'm too low in the camera. I need to like adjust down, but I figure people want to see like the stuff behind me. So
it's all good, man. It's all good. Southern Comic Geeks, good to see you as always. Says you got some good taste in books. Taste in Rob. Good stuff.
Oh, good stuff.
So it's cool to hear that you kind of got back into the hobby. Again, kind of similar to a lot of the other people I've talked to. And like you said, like it seemed like everybody just kind of jumped in at once, started putting up content. And I find it interesting that you were saying at first you were kind of just watching these YouTube channels, not saying anything.
I would say I went probably 6 months where I might comment occasionally, but not consistently.
Right.
And I wouldn't really like say hey to anybody or anything, or it was just very rarely that I commented for a long time. But I think I was just kept coming back. I kept being drawn to it because for most of my life, other than that one friend I had in college, I really haven't had friends that I could talk about this stuff with. Like,
right.
For the most part, it's you like comic books, nerd,
Right. Of course.
that was the, as a kid and everything else, the perspective that you dealt with.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until recently with the Marvel movies and everything where being a nerds are now cool or whatever,
cool.
And
yeah.
But it was just nice to like talk to people about it and had stuff in common with people, and it was just it was just so much fun. So yeah, I went from, because I found the community around the time I went to those cons in like the spring of 18. And I probably didn't start like commenting till October, November of 18.
Wow. Okay.
Like on a consistent basis. Like,
sure.
I commented in Reggie stuff a few times. I commented in Thanatos stuff a few times before that, but not consistently. It was fall.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I started to notice too for myself when I was doing more on Instagram. I would just start seeing the same names come up, liking my stuff or commenting on my stuff. And that's where the conversation started to happen, or even the messaging back and forth would start to happen as I would share a book or two, or someone else would share a book or two, and I would comment on that. So when you do that again and again and again, it's easy to just start to develop those friendships.
Yeah. And there's so many people that I don't like, literally, that I consider like friends in this community that I don't like, that I haven't even been on like this with you. Like, right. I still haven't even done like a show with.
Right. But you just feel like you know them.
Yeah, but you still feel like you know them from the conversations in the chats or occasionally Instagram messages or whatever. Like, and there's a bunch of them that I haven't even done shows with. Right. It's just like, but you still consider them, you know who they are, you see them in the community. It's really, it's been a blessing for me. I won't say, like, it's gotten me through some stuff, and like, particularly this year with COVID and I'm single, live alone. It's like, the mind-numbing boredom of living with just a dog and a cat, which, they can be entertaining at times. But having this community to fall back on, it's been amazing. Totally. And I feel like a lot of people think that and feel that way about this. So,
big time. I mean, just seeing the community come together in so many different ways and be there to support one another. It's been incredible. And as you said, like, I mean, there are people I've never really, or I've talked to, but never have had a show with or whatever, where I feel like if I ran into them at a store, I would be able to just talk to them as if I've known them for a long time. Like, hey man, like, how you been? Like, so that's what's cool about that. So totally agree. I see Superpower Review is in the house as well. Man. Always good to see you. So let's talk a little bit about kind of some of the books that you're reading right now. What and maybe that list is a long list because I know that I know you do a good amount of reading. But if you had to choose a handful that you want to share, what are some books that you're reading right now that you're?
I mean, there's books that I just always read. There's the Batmans, the detectives, the ASM. Right. Like those are just books that I just always read, no matter who's the writer is or how bad occasionally some of them get. Right. I read those. Some of the other stuff I'm reading right now, I mean, like Nightwing, I read that all the time, no matter what kind of thing. Marauders is one I read that's a little different. I don't collect a ton of X-Men. Like I like the X-Men, I just haven't ever really collected it. I've enjoying Marauders. But most of what I'm reading right now is the stuff I'm doing for the indie show, which is one of the things I do, which is I never really read independent comics. Just didn't. It was like I was Batman, Spider-Man stuff, a little bit of other DC, Marvel, but mostly that was it. And so I'm trying to go back and read a bunch of that stuff. So most of my reading lately has been like working my way through with a group of guys through East and West, and working my way through with you through Descender. You and Andy. Now I'm through Descender and working my way through Saga, and so those are the kinds of things that I've mostly been. Fables is one that I'm reading with John, and let's see, what else am I forgetting? Monstrous is one that I'm going through right now. So those are the things I've actually mostly been reading. I don't really see myself changing in that way. I don't really collect independent comics, but I am really enjoying just grabbing trades and reading them and still getting exposed to those stories. Even if I don't collect them, I don't need to collect everything. I don't want to have, 30,000 comics.
After all, where would you put it all?
Where am I going to put them? So, and it's been, really, but really going back and like I got a whole shelf of independent trades that I've starting to build that like I didn't have any of here at the start of the year. So, so I'm really enjoying that part of it. Those are the stories that I'm really enjoying reading right now. Not all of them are new. I mean, we've read Something is Killing the Children is one I've read, which I've only read the first volume. I haven't read I haven't bought a single issue. When volume 2 drops, I'm going to get it though, because I want to.
It's amazing. So. Oh, that's awesome. And actually, I wanted to go back a second. Now that you mentioned the indie show, I wanted to ask you, it's kind of a two-parter, but when did you decide to start the indie show? And even furthermore, when did you actually start really putting yourself out there on YouTube yourself, not just watching from the chat?
So we'll do the second part first.
Yeah.
And back in December I've been going back and forth all through the fall of 18. Should I do it? Should I make a YouTube channel? Because I'd gotten some encouragement from a few people, but not but I haven't really talked about it. I like when I started chatting, like a few people, you should do something or whatever. But like at that point, I still didn't have I was still just the dude in the, like my thumbnail, like the little symbol in the chat was just a guy. And it was, and my name was at that point was Jason P. It was not, I didn't because I didn't have a channel.
You didn't brand yourself yet. Yeah.
And it was really during the 12 RB3's 12 Days of Christmas thing that he did during December of 18. And like he was doing something every day. And so I watched it every day, and I was talking to John and Kavi and Bake and Randy Ray Snake and gosh, I don't even remember, Perry and all these people like daily. White Whale was in there like daily during this while he was doing this giveaway, because every day if you were in the live chat you could win something.
Right.
And it was a lot of fun, and I was like, okay. So when I won a couple things from him. So when he got done with it, he sent it to me. And so it came, and I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it. So I changed my channel name. and I made a video of unboxing my prize winnings from RB3 in January of 2019.
Yeah.
And then it just kept kind of doing. Then I made I think Thanatos had a contest going on, so I made a video for Thanatos contest. And then somebody else had a contest going on at the same time. Was it Kavi? Kavi, is that when your contest was going on?
Oh, maybe.
I don't remember. I ended up making a couple contest videos. John had a contest going on. He had his recommend books for kids. So once I made at that point I made 3 or 4 things. I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need to come up with a something of my own, like something that I could do regularly, so that I actually have content. Because most people had some sort of content,
like a weekly thing. Yeah.
And that's when the Look Back show.
I love that show.
Started. That was the first thing I came up with. And it was something I've been thinking about beforehand, because I had chased some stupid books during the fall of 18 when I was watching Tom and saying, "Oh, this is on the hot book," and I was like, "What are you doing?" At this point, I'd already realized the mistakes I'd made. By January, and it was like, so that was kind of the first thing, and then it wasn't long after that I reached out to and this goes into the kind of the indie show. I reached out to Matt Thanatos and the Boy Who Had 7 had started doing a read through of Green Lantern that they were doing together and talking about it. And I was like, that would be fun. To just read some trades and some story, and Kavi NYC was one of the first people, he was on my first live video, he commented on my very first video. So I just reached out to him on Instagram. At this point, I had not communicated with him on Instagram before this. And I reached out to him on Instagram and I was like, "Hey, I know you're a big Batman fan. I was thinking about trying to do something for my channel. Would you want to do a Batman show?" And he was down. And that's where Gotham City Chronicles, after us going back and forth on a name forever and a couple other things, but that's where Gotham City Chronicles came from, which is our we read a Batman show, a Batman story. We have somebody come in and talk about it. And ultimately, over the year plus I've been doing this, this spring, I was like, you know what? I need to read some of these indie stories, and why not do something similar? Why not invite some of my friends to come read these and talk about them with me? Because I don't want to hear myself give a review of a comic book. Nobody wants to hear that.
No, you want to talk about it.
For me, and the indie show doesn't get a ton of views, but it does get some. And I appreciate the people that hang out and watch. But that show is completely for me to have an excuse to have my friends on a video chat and to talk about a book we just read. It's a book club. It's book club. It's
just to hang out.
Book club. Yeah. The idea is completely stolen from John's book, from John and White Whale's book club, and from Matt that we use for Gotham City Chronicles. But it's really, it's just an excuse to hang out and talk about a comic.
Totally. And there's nothing wrong with that. More and more people, I'm finding that more with doing it with John, doing the X-Men stuff. It's just just a place to be able to hang and talk about the stuff you love.
He's got a complaint.
Well, let me see what he's putting here. I was just on the show before. It's what YouTube I need. This Kevin, yes, for sure, man. I'll talk to you after the show for sure. Alan Climbing Comics also says he should try to do more contests. Also not good at trivia. there's a lot of creative ways people are doing stuff.
Aren't really trivia, so that's and I did a lot. That was a lot of stuff I did that first year, and I haven't done contest entries hardly at all this year. It's I've been lazy about it, but lazy about it. I don't really have an excuse. It's just,
No, man, it's again, you're putting a lot of content out, and I really enjoy a lot of the stuff that you're doing. So it's cool that you've gotten into this rhythm with a lot of different people too. And like you said, it's just a way to you're really just doing it to have fun, right? That's the whole point of this whole thing.
That's my whole point. By some miracle I've gotten to 1,000 subs, but it's that was never. It was kind of a goal. It's kind of like this, I made it kind of thing. But now that I got there, I was like, did that change anything? And I'm like, no. Like I was just gonna do what I'm doing. Really, and I'll be honest, some of the shows where I have more people watching like live and the chat's like really moving, I find frustrating because I can't keep up with it.
Right. It's like you don't even. I remember you went on live one time and it was kind of like unexpected. You didn't even really you weren't even like planning anything, but I think you got in like a bunch of graphic trade paperbacks in.
Yeah.
And you jumped on and I happened to see it. I think I was at work. Like it was like middle of the day, but it like worked out for me. So I'm like, let me jump on. And then like you had like 10, 12, 15 people like in the chat. You were like, this was supposed to just be this short little thing. And like people were just like free. They were free to hang out. So you stayed on longer and you showed up.
Those are some of the most fun YouTube things that I do is like the hangouts. And then obviously like the things that like this, we'll do this and then we'll go off and we'll probably talk for 20, 30 more minutes like offline. And those are some of the best times I have as well on YouTube is just hanging out, getting to know people. Yeah. I do a fair number of offline hangs, not enough, like where I just send the link to some people and like, let's hang out.
Yeah.
and and those conversations though were so much fun. And I enjoy, like, it's funny because it's become a joke and John likes to mock me, like of the Sunday show that used to be just my Sunday live stream or whatever is what I called it. And then Kachung one weekend called it the whatever report because I never knew what the hell I was going to be talking about. Mostly, I never knew what I was going to be talking about, and so I ran with that. And yeah, I love doing it. I'll just hang out, and as long as I'm getting enough feedback in the chat that I can keep it going, like that I have something that I don't run out of things to talk about.
Right.
Those are some of my most fun YouTube things. I'm sure they're not watchable for anybody that's not in the chat at the time. Right. But I love doing them. So
yeah, it's that in the moment kind of thing for sure. I even like, and I wanted to comment before on. I see that you're doing more random live streams on Instagram, like during your morning runs or your morning walks.
It's just my running thing, but
but still though, it's just another opportunity in kind of what we're saying, where you jump on. Sometimes people are on there if they catch you in the morning. I know you do your stuff early, but it's cool. It's just another way to kind of hang.
I'm usually on or off here by between 7 and 8 o'clock, like Central Time is when I do my run, because I need to do it. Like I've just learned that, like for me physically, I'm much better off if I get up and do it than if I like eat breakfast or do some other stuff and try to do it later in the day or do it in the evening. I just don't feel as good. Like I can't. Yeah. That first thing in the morning, I'm much more able to get in a good run.
I'm with you there. I haven't done any exercising in a while, but when I was a 5 a.m. guy, and I used to go to the gym, and it just felt better to get that, use up that energy early. But it's cool. I like that you jump on, during your cool down or whatever. You just like, why not?
It became like initially is, and it still is, because I only do it weekly now. I don't like do a live, like go on live every day, because I felt like that was kind of redundant, because I say the same thing almost every time. I do my run.
Here I am.
Like I survived. It's really kind of just a check-in for me, like to help keep me going. It's like, okay, Saturday I gotta get up, gotta get him running. I'll post it, and it just kind of helps keep me accountable to myself, and by being accountable to you guys, because if you don't see it, you're gonna be like, "Hey, did he not run?"
Hey, man, yeah.
I know somebody will send me a message if it doesn't show up, and it's like, okay,
where were you?
What the heck?
That's great. So I wanted to ask you, and you can get a little into this story. I wanted to ask you if you had a book or two that you wanted to show off that really meant something to you.
Well, so from that perspective, the part of the story that we're going to talk about at the end, we'll save that for the end. But to show off some stuff, part of the books that mean the most to me, outside of the one we're going to talk about in a minute, are the ones that people have sent me, and like the AOKs that I've gotten from this community. And we're talking, and I've gotten some amazing AOKs, like Kavi. Like if you've never went back and watched this video on my channel, it was from like right at the end of September of 2019. Wow. And like, Kavi sent me this book. I about like fell out of my chair.
Yeah, like, that's incredible, man.
Speechless. But I've gotten he sent me that book. Let me see here. I should have organized these. I didn't think about it, but Bear Island sent me this Teen Titans signed by George Perez and Marv Wolfman.
Wow.
Let's see. I'm just pulling books out. Big Will sent me this.
Nice.
The
AOKs are incredible.
Bonafide sent me this,
Wow.
which is not super valuable, but it's another Dick Grayson, book. Gosh, where's it? Let's see. I got this from TJ. I mean, all of these, these are all just AOKs, and there's a bunch more. I got. Oh, gosh, sorry. Let's see. Where's that other book? Gamers have sent me a bunch of stuff, including this book. Half my slabs I feel like are stuff people have sent me. It's not quite that bad, but it's Matt the Boy Who Had Seven sent me this.
Oh man, that's another great one.
Yeah, and it's just, and if you've never seen that video, that's hysterical too, because DS kept getting copies of that book. And Matt and DS were having this, and I think Kavi might have even been in on this conversation. We're having this side conversation about the DS couldn't sell me a copy because Matt had a copy that he was going to send me. And I kept asking DS about copies of this. Well, I don't know yet. And he kept not because Matt had because he bought it for me I want to say in September, but he did the 12 Days of Christmas, obviously early December. It's when I actually got it and got to open it, but he'd had it for 4 months, and it was them conspiring to keep me from buying this. Because without giving away that's what they've done. So
that's great.
He says they were in cahoots of sorts. And so, but yeah, those books, the fact that anybody would send me something those books just mean so much to me because they came from people in this community, and they didn't have to do any of that. And it just makes you feel appreciated. It makes you feel like it's hard for me because I don't understand why people say stuff. I always have a hard time it always gets me why are you doing this? But I do appreciate it so much. So yeah, those are the books that mean the most to me.
Yeah.
Other than the book that we were talking about earlier. So
yeah, tell us a little bit about that the other book that you wanted to bring up.
So Southern made a comment earlier about that I have bad taste in Robins. My favorite comic book character is Nightwing. Mm-hmm. The reason for that is when I got into thanks Comics and Pop. When I got into comics when I was in college, I was a freshman in college in '96, so I'll officially date myself if you can figure out how old I am. Well, September, October was when the original ongoing Nightwing came out. Nightwing series came out. And I don't know if you remember it, but this was Dick Grayson. He moved to Bloodhaven, was on his own completely. He'd been sort of on his own for a while, since he'd left, and there'd been other Robins and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But he was on his own, new town, trying to find his own way. And I was a freshman in college and reading that. And it just spoke to me on so many levels. I still really love that story. To me, and that's why he'll always be my favorite character, because that's what really got me. Because I say I read him as a kid, but I was a very casual reader. I wasn't necessarily I read most of the Breaking of Nightfall and off spinner racks and stuff, but I wasn't I missed an issue. It was whatever, I'll figure it out. It wasn't. But that was the first time that I really was I got to get every issue of this. I got to collect this, and so that book is not here at the moment. The show. Yeah. In my last batch of CGC books, which is the third time I've sent stuff to CGC, I included that. it should be back by now.
Should be here any minute.
Yeah. It has apparently disappeared in the U.S. mail, and I
Yeah.
was telling you I won't go into the full details, but it's registered mail coming back from CGC. But there appears to be some, like, it hadn't moved since like Wednesday, and it really hadn't moved since last Saturday. Like last Saturday, I got to Kansas City, and they kept saying in transit from Kansas City, like for days, like in transit to the next facility, but it didn't actually log it out of Kansas City. Well, finally logged it out of Kansas City on Wednesday. I was like, okay, something leaves Wednesday night. It's here Thursday. That's the way the post office always works. Didn't come. Didn't come yesterday. I looked this morning and hadn't updated. My CGC box hadn't. And so I went in a while ago, and like apparently there's some kind of alert on it from registry mail. The lady's like, well, I'm gonna have to call registry and find out what's going on with this package, where it's at. But yeah, so I have no idea what's happened to my book or the other 9 books that are coming back from CGC. So I'm hoping that they will track it down early this week, and I'll have it back in my possession along with those other books. But yeah, we're a little
playing the waiting game right now.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly what's going on with it. But the guy, I'm a little concerned because the post office guy was like, oh, there's no, your address is not listed with it. There's no to or from address listed.
Yeah, that would be the biggest thing that scares me.
Yeah, that's what frightens me. It's like, it's not that it like it's gotten hauled up somewhere. It's that there's no, in the computer at least, there's no to and from address, like on the tracking number. Right. And so he said he'd never seen that. Kyle says it'll turn up.
Yeah.
The lady who was the supervisor, and I'm in a small town post office, so the guy that I was talking to, like literally has worked the desk at the post office since I moved here 17 years ago.
Right.
So I know him, and he's like, he'd never seen that with a registered mail before. And I'm like, fuck. Sorry, I don't know if I should cut your cat.
Sorry, it's all good.
But yeah, and it was like, and the lady who was the supervisor, she was like, this is really weird. And so she had to call her supervisor. And,
gosh.
And try to figure out what was going on. So she's trying to track it down through registry, but she's like, there's not going to be anybody at the registry office today that I can talk to because this has a note on it, contact registry. And yeah, so we'll see. Hopefully Monday we'll find something out and it'll be here early next week.
Yeah, fingers crossed. You'll have to give us an update.
So
I assume you'll show some things off when they come in.
Oh yeah, I'll do a live unboxing when they come in.
Nice.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Or if they don't, there'll be a rant probably on my YouTube channel.
We're gonna get one thing or another.
You're gonna get one or the other at some point. So.
Great point. Oh man. Well, it's cool to hear a little bit about your about what Nightwing means to you and kind of the backstory of that. I always love to hear, where people connect with certain characters and why. So it's cool to kind of hear a little bit of that background.
Well, he's just the best. Well, actually, he's probably not the best Robin because most of his Robin stuff was Golden and Silver Age, where he was like goofy and stuff. But in terms of, to me, he's still the best of the Bat characters because I appreciate that he's positive.
Yeah.
Like of the ones in that family, like Damian and Jason are moody and Bruce is moody and everybody, it's so bleak and everything. Dick he's having fun. Like, he's curious about it and trying to help people and do the work. But like when he's swinging around buildings, he's having fun. He's like, this is like, and I like that he brings, to me, that's what makes him the best of that group is because it's not just all dark and foreboding and like the mission like that you get from Batman sometimes. Dick Grayson has fun. Like he enjoys what he's doing. Nice comics and pops. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's nice to hear he has more of that positive perspective on things. Very cool. Well, I want to ask you a question a little bit about something I bring up on this show every week. It has to do with new collectors, someone that's approaching this hobby for the first time. What kind of advice would you give somebody if they were just getting into it for the first time? And I know this question could be very vague or very specific, so feel free to answer in any way that you want. We've had people talk about, using types of bags and boards and tape or something more vague. So, if someone were to approach this, what would you tell them, or what would you
My advice would be way more general than that. And to me, like, if you're wanting to collect and not knowing for sure where the perspective the person's coming from or whatever, is the first thing is to know what you like. Don't buy something because I tell you it's good, or No Good tells you it's good, or that crazy guy John who like bad books tells you it's good. Figure out what you like. Like, expose yourself to read a bunch of different stuff. If you haven't really read many comics, you don't necessarily know. Mm-hmm. Read a bunch of different stuff. Figure out what you enjoy and collect that. Yeah. Don't worry about, I got to get these valuable books, or I got to get like
all the specs
that are worth something, or keys. Get what you want. Get what you like. Collecting it. The reason collecting is so much fun is it's specific to all of us. We all collect different things. Sorry, John. Never. We all like different things. So it's really about, it's very generic. Lots of people say it on YouTube. Collect what you love. But
it's so true.
But to me, that's the main thing. And if you're not sure, if you're getting into it, and maybe like you've enjoyed some of the movies, and like you're like, okay, some of the Marvel movies, and now I want to get it. Well, start with those, but expose yourself to start with some of those characters, but try some different things. Pick up a random book every so often. Figure out if you like the character, you like what it's about. Pick up some trades. I think that's really, to me, as I've gotten further into this, and particularly as I'm doing like the indie show and exposing myself to these new stories, I think trades are a way underrated portion of this collecting community in terms of exposing yourself to stories.
Big time.
Because, it allows you to because it's different than picking up a single issue, is because you're getting a story. You're getting a group of stories. You can actually get a better feel for what's going on.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Kavi's saying it better than what I'm trying to say without that. The rest will figure itself out.
It all aligns, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, grab some trade. Like, don't chase like hot book of the week. Go to the trade shelf. Wait till they're on sale. Go to In Stock Trades. Try some things. See what you like, and go from there. And then once you've figured out the stuff that you really like, then you can go back and try to grab those issues. There's nothing. Like, if you're smart and you budget for it, short of, some of the mega ultra grails,
right?
Most books, particularly if they're modern, you can get, like, they'll come around. Like, you'll be, like, if you are patient or smart, you can get most of the modern stuff. Eventually, you might have to wait, but you can get there.
Yeah. There's enough out there.
Yeah, there's enough of them out there that you can go back and get books. Figure out what you love. Don't worry about chasing the hot book of the moment.
Yeah. I think you're spot on with that. And I mean, you say it's a generic thing, but it's certainly a thing that needs to be said from time to time, because even though so many people might say that, there are still so many people who go down that rabbit hole of buying things that other people are recommending or telling them to buy, or speculation just kills it,
And it goes along with that is the FOMO, the fear of missing out on something.
Yeah.
And don't let that drive you. Because these books will find their way. If it's something that ultimately you really want, you really think, it'll find its way back to you.
Yeah,
it will. There, that book, they don't disappear. Like, you can go on eBay any day of any year.
Yeah,
and they're going to be there. There's
especially the modern stuff,
Especially modern stuff. Now, some of it, like a Golden Age thing, that's a little different. But don't start with that.
No, don't start with
that's not
Captain America. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's
I mean, there's some really old stuff, that really valuable stuff, that maybe it won't come back, but that's not where you're gonna, as a new person, that's not where you're starting anyway.
Right. Right. Very true. Well, I like that advice. And, like I said, I like to always I like having this segment to kind of talk a little bit about some advice or some general stuff, because there are a lot of people that are just now getting into the hobby. And I do think that this hobby can come off as intimidating. I do think that it can be kind of scary. not knowing everything and feeling like you have to know everything. At least that's kind of how I felt when I first approached it, and especially seeing everyone else doing their thing, I always felt like, wow, everybody knows their stuff. It made me, but you know what I mean? Like, it made me feel like, oh, do I need to know my stuff? And it's like, but you don't. You just need to know what you like, and that's the biggest thing, because you're not wrong on what you like. Like, no one can tell you you're wrong with that. So,
well, and here's the thing, like. If you get into this hobby and you start like buying issues, well, you got to buy bags, you got to buy boards, you got to buy boxes, you got to,
people don't talk about that stuff.
Yeah. But if you start and just like hunt some trades, you need a bookshelf.
Yeah.
Like you put them on a shelf, you read them. And then from there, you can start figuring out what you really like before you go in and start, and I just think like taking your time to read some stuff, figure out what you like. There's no rush.
Yeah.
There's just no rush on anything.
Yeah. People freak out like it's this emergency.
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes you'll miss on stuff by being patient. Like there's books that like Star Wars Clone Wars was number 1, was a book that I was like, oh, I'll get it. It was a $40, $50 book. Oh, I get it. Well, it's an $800 book. I'm like, well, you know what?
Sometimes you have those.
I'll still get it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be this year.
Right.
But it'll still happen.
Oh yeah.
It's not like, I'm not worried about it. Like if it's truly something I want, I'll make it happen eventually. It's just going to happen on a different timeline now than originally thought.
Yeah.
And so there's a book that like took off on me. Same thing with the Ultimate Fallout 4, First Miles Morales. That was a book. Those were both books that were like on my list, but toward the bottom. They weren't priorities because they weren't really like, they just weren't priorities yet. I had other stuff I wanted first.
Yep.
And now suddenly they're 5, 6, 10 times as expensive as they were.
Yeah.
They'll find their way back.
Yeah.
I don't plan on kicking the bucket tomorrow. I plan on being around for a day or two. They'll find their way back. It just might take some time. And I'm okay with that. And I think that's the other thing is understand what your situation is and, understand that sometimes you just have to be patient. And I realize that can be hard, but it'll work itself out.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's situation is different, and I think also another thing to add is just, people are so focused on the things they don't have, and they kind of forget about the things that they do have.
And I think that's a big thing that for me, like I already have, like I haven't added anything really to my collection for several months, like other than like a few new books because of some other house. Nothing major, but just other. I just keep having other things that like, oh, I'm gonna have to take that. There goes that $100. There goes that $65.
Yeah.
Life stuff.
Yeah.
But I already have so many things that if you told me spring of 2018 would be in my collection, I'd have said, you're nuts. No way.
Right.
And a big chunk of it is those AOKs I was talking about because I wasn't in a position necessarily to buy those books yet.
Right.
And those have of course allowed me to buy other books with the money that I was putting toward those. And so that's played a big role in it. But there's just so many books that like I consider pipe dreams when I started collecting that are sitting in this box right here.
That you have now. Yeah.
Like I can see them.
Yeah.
and it's like, it'll happen. It happens when it happens. You just take your time. You'll figure it out.
Yep. I love that. That's so true. I want to jump into some of the rapid questions. I know I sent you some prepped questions, but I do have a couple questions for you. Some that yeah. So some are comic related, some are not. Okay. So, and I like to ask like a favorite character. We already talked about that. I do want to ask overall, if you had to choose, would you end up being more of a Marvel or DC guy overall if you had to pick one?
So just to clarify, like I've always loved both, but realistically I consider myself a bats and spiders guy because those two characters.
Yeah.
If I had to choose, DC slightly over Marvel.
Yeah.
Like, I was never, even with the movies and stuff, I've never been like a huge Avengers guy.
Mhm.
I've enjoyed the X-Men, but DC slightly above Marvel, but it's close for me. I don't like, to me, anybody that's like, oh, I'm a DC guy, I'm a Marvel guy,
Yeah.
you're missing out. Like, again, I talked about that before. You're missing out on other good stories.
Yeah.
Like, so for me, it's both. But yeah, I would slightly DC. It's, you know, it's very slight, but
It's close. I like that. No, you're right though. It's about missing out for sure. It's something that I've considered again and again because I've really focused a lot of my stuff on reading Marvel up until recently, where I'm starting to get into more indie stuff. Kind of like what you've introduced me to Descender, where I'm just like I'm going down this new pathway where I'm like, this is so cool, man. I'm loving some of these newer indie stuff, and obviously there's so many other titles that I'm starting to check out too. But you're right. It's good to be open up about a lot of that stuff. It's hard to just choose one thing.
yeah.
All right. So if you could have one superpower, what would that be?
One superpower, what would it be? Oh man. Um, you know, you'd think I would have thought about this before because I've heard people ask this, and I don't know. Like, I don't. It would probably be. I would probably lean toward flight, just because. Yeah, just to be able to get around, just
sure, totally.
Yeah. Just like I realize that it's probably not that useful, like in a battle, but I'm not like in a like.
Yeah, you're not. You would use it for personal reasons.
Just to be able to just like step outside and just go. Totally. Not have to worry about roads and traffic or anybody else. It would probably be flight.
Think about all the money you'd be saving on gas, you know?
Yeah. I mean, well, and not just that, because part of that is also that I like for those that don't know, because we didn't talk about this, but I work for Department of Conservation in the state. Like I do a lot of outdoor stuff. I love being outdoors. And just to be able to just go and get away from people and just flight, it would have to be flight.
That's cool. That I could see that even playing a bigger role than if you're into that. And it's interesting because I should take a tally. I feel like everyone that's come on the show, I want to say like maybe 60% of people have said flight so far. Now, granted,
I was trying to think of how to be original, and I was like, no, it's just flight.
Yeah, no, look, it totally works. I think it's just I mean,
it's a freedom thing.
Yeah.
To me, it's really like, to me, that would represent freedom of just freedom of movement, freedom to go where I want to, when I want to. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, there's other powers that would be cool. I mean, you could go, if you wanted to go the other way, you could go with speed. You could go, like, the other thing I thought about is that you could take Wally West the speed, but it's like, no, but then you're still stuck on the ground. Like,
true. It's true.
Let me just soar over the trees and let me just go where I want.
But if you're fast enough, maybe you could mess with time travel a little. Maybe
that's a can of worms.
Too much.
How well that works for Wally. It doesn't work well.
I see Alan here says, yes, there's so many great stories in both of them following specific writers, regardless of the publish.
And that's a great way to do it, is find writers that you love.
Yeah. Yep. Big time. Cool. So next thing I wanted to ask was, if you could meet one comic book creator, whether they were alive or whether they're alive or dead, if you could have like dinner with someone and pick their brain for an hour, who would that be? Whether it's a writer or an artist?
I feel like it, to a certain degree, it almost has to be Stan, but I think, but if I'm not going to do the obvious choice of...
So I was gonna say, you saying Stan is actually, I believe you're the first person to say Stan. A lot of people go with Kirby.
Really? No, I would probably I just think Stan would be a heck of a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, I also feel like Kirby would probably be the next obvious choice. Kirby would not necessarily be my choice. I don't know. I'm trying to think of somebody who's like alive and in the industry now that I would be. Like if I wasn't going to go with Stan, probably George Perez or maybe even Marv Wolfman. I just feel like Marv's just a great storyteller. Probably lean toward Perez. I really love George. I love like his art and his writing, and like that would probably be the second choice behind Stan.
That's huge. I mean, he's a staple. I was lucky enough to just walk by his table last year before the whole pandemic and everything. During East Coast Comic Con, I saw him. I was actually getting a signature from Jim Starlin, and his table was right next door. And I only had time to get in line for one of them, so I ended up going there. But yeah, Perez is definitely a staple in this industry. I see Cuber's in the house. Good to see you, Cuber. Thanks for swinging by. Yeah, catch the replay for sure. Anybody rewatching, thank you for taking the time to rewatch. All right, so all right, let's shift gears a little bit. This is one of my favorite questions, not comic book related.
Okay.
If it's a Friday night for you and you had the choice of anything you could eat for dinner, what is your go-to meal for a Friday night? Like relaxed. It could be ordering out. It could be going somewhere. It could be cooking yourself. What is that? Where do you go? What is that for you?
Literally what I do almost every Friday, which is beer and pizza.
Hell yeah. I love that.
I do that most Fridays as I order pizza from one of the places. I will say, like, if I could do, like, to be more specific though, like, would be, which I can't do from here, unfortunately, because where I live, there would be one of two pizza places that I'd probably rotate every Friday, which would be Shakespeare's Pizza in Columbia, which is like in Columbia, Missouri. It's just so freaking good.
Really?
Yeah. Shakespeare, like, it is probably like, if you ever go to Columbia if you're into college sports or something, because it is a college town, and go, like, follow your team and they're playing Mizzou and you go to Columbia, go to Shakespeare's. You ever find yourself there, go to Shakespeare's. It's worth it.
Wow. I'll put it on the list.
It's amazing pizza. Okay. And the other one would be PK's, if they're still there. I haven't been there in 20 years, but which was the pizza place in Blacksburg, which is where Virginia Tech is at.
Oh, okay.
Those two places, I would go back and forth because I love them both. Those two places, those are the, like, pizza I've ever had. There's those two places. There's everything else.
Wow.
It's like, and so yeah,
I love that. What 20 years ago you said you went to where? What was the circumstance for that?
I went to grad school. So I did my undergrad at University of Missouri, here, like, just down the road from where I grew up. But yeah, the University of Missouri in Columbia. And then I went to grad school for my master's at Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, Virginia. So
cool. Well, I'll have to check those places out because I love some good pizza if I can find it. And I like Rage in here saying pizza has been like 40% of the people's picks on the show. So you're not alone.
Yeah, beer and pizza on a Friday. That's usually my go-to.
I'm right there with you. It's funny. I think that's always my Saturday. At least the past couple of months, that's been my Saturday go-to. So, but yeah, it's like the perfect thing. Find it hard to decide between pizza and bagels, but I guess it's pizza bagels. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Kavi, when he was on the show too, we talked pizza, and I think we even talked a little bit of Chicago pizza because of his trip out to C2E2.
Oh yeah, well, he's a big New York pizza guy.
Like, and he's a big New York, And
I've never had true New York pizza because I've never been to New York. At some point, I need to get out. Man, it's just
yeah, man, you got to get out here sometime. Obviously, once the pandemic's over. But that'd be cool, man. Yeah, that would be really cool. All right, so. All right, this is one I want to get into with you because I know where you stand now. You're a sports guy, and I always like to bring up the question of sports. So you told me off air, but let me know, who are your teams? What's your favorite sport?
Favorite sport is actually probably baseball. Like, from when I was a kid, I've always loved baseball. Part of its advantage is I was in a small enough school that, like, we didn't have football as a kid. Like, I didn't play football because we were tiny. Like, I had a graduating class of 40.
40?
Yeah. So,
oh my God, I had 400.
Yeah. So, like, we were tiny. So I played baseball, basketball were my, like, sports. I never really had, other than University of Missouri, like, I never had a basketball team. So my basketball is always just rotated between the players that I like because I had no NBA allegiance. Okay. But Kansas City Royals, Kansas City Chiefs, Missouri Tigers. Those are my three teams. And if anybody thinks that's a sports trifecta you want to follow, given that the Chiefs are really good right now. You don't know the history of those. There are lots more pain than the joy we're getting right now. We have paid for. Like,
I believe you. I have a family friend, or a friend in the family that is a big Chiefs fan, and he's always expressed how challenging the years have been coming up to what you guys have now.
Like
So.
last year, like, because I was so convinced, like, because there's just been so many painful, just rip your like rip your heart out Chiefs playoff losses over the years.
Yeah.
And last year when they got down, because I thought last year was the year, I was like, they finally have the quarterback. They're going to do it this time. And when they got down 24-0 to the Texans with the blocked punt and the fumbled punt and just giving the game away, like just horrendous. I was like, my sister had to talk me off the ledge. I was just like, are you kidding me? It's still the same old Chiefs. What the bleep? And it was so funny because I'll tell this story. Like, for those who don't know, Royals, Chiefs, Mizzou Tigers. But so the Royals back in 2015 when they won the World Series, well, they fell behind the Astros in the divisional series 2-1. They were in Houston and they fell down. What was the score? It was like 6-3, I think, in like the 7th or 8th inning. And I was pissed because we were about to lose. Like we were about to get eliminated by the Astros. I was mad. I thought they'd played so well all year and they were playing like crap.
Yeah.
And so the dog and I went for a walk. Well, the Royals, if you don't know, staged this massive rally in the 8th inning while the dog and I were on a walk. And I was following it on my phone. Like I was following the game on my phone. And it's like, and they staged this massive rally and came back.
Wow.
And literally when I got to the house, I walked in, I saw the hit that put them ahead.
Wow.
And they went on to win the series and win the World Series. And it was thing. So last year, when they fell down 24-0.
Yeah.
My sister was talking about, she's like, it's time to take Percy for a walk.
Yeah, go walk.
It's my dog. And I'm like, all right, so we went for a walk.
You did.
By the time I got back to the house, and I was watching it on my phone the whole time.
Right.
By the time I got back to my house, it was 24-21, and they were going in for the touchdown to put them ahead 28-20 before the half.
Yep. That's incredible.
That's
so great.
So the dog is like whenever it gets bad, the dog and I go for a walk.
That's amazing.
I try not to use it too much. I don't want to wear it out.
Yeah, I was gonna say the next time that the Ravens, because that's my team, the next time the Ravens and the Chiefs are going at it, and if there's that scenario where the Ravens are winning, I'm gonna make sure to try to distract you as much as I can and make sure you do not go on a walk. They say just stay in your house, JP. No, your dog went for a walk earlier.
The Super Bowl when they fell behind the 49ers in the Super Bowl, I did not go for a walk. I stayed and just watched it. But those two are
yeah.
Yes.
It's so great. I love that, man. That's really cool. I actually really enjoy. It's weird to say because I'm a Yankee fan when it comes to baseball, but I actually do follow the Royals fairly closely.
Oh yeah.
I think a part of it was fantasy football like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And I just liked them ever since, kind of just I've always kind of just rooted for them. I don't know. Like, obviously, if they're playing the Yankees, I'm going to root for the Yankees, but I like some of the guys on the team. And so that was something I always,
the group that played that 2014, 2015 team.
Yeah.
Was just a lot of fun. And you could tell they had a lot of fun playing as a group.
Yeah.
Hosmer and Kane and Perez.
That's the best when they're having fun.
Guy and Moustakas, they just enjoyed each other and they enjoyed playing. And if you follow them on social media, Lorenzo Kane and Salvador Perez on social media were a freaking riot because it consisted mostly of Perez messing with Lorenzo Kane on social media constantly. Lorenzo Kane, leave me alone. And so, but they were just they were just hysterical. And I miss those teams just because they were such a close-knit group.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that they eventually won it. I was there So I went to Game 7 in 2014.
Wow.
Was both the greatest and worst sporting events that I ever went to.
Wow. That's
Like,
crazy.
when Gordon hit the ball into left center field and it got by the left, when they booted it out there and he was running around the bases, the stadium was shaking.
Oh, I bet.
Like you could feel it like vibrating. And it was just like, and then stupid Bumgarner. But mostly by the fact that I was also at the 12-inning wild card game where they beat the A's. But yeah, so I went to several of those games.
Wow.
My sister and I went to the World Series Game 1 in 2014. My dad and I went to World Series Game 2 in 2015.
That's so cool that you went to these. Those are huge games.
It was this weird thing. Like I made in 2014, like I was like, I'm going to the wild card game. I don't care what it cost me. I haven't seen the Royals play in the playoffs since I was like 7 years old with George Brett in '85.
Yeah.
I'm going. And then I won the lottery. They did a lottery to get tickets for like the other playoff games. I won the lottery for the division series and the ALCS. So I went to the division series game by myself. I went to the ALCS with a buddy that I went to college with.
Nice.
And then my sister was like, I want to come down for the World Series. And so her and I bought tickets to Game 1 of the World Series. And then literally day of, when it went to Game 7, after they won Game 6 and forced Game 7, I went online on StubHub and I found a single. And the single was actually pretty cheap. I paid less for the single than we did for the two, like each one individually for Game 1, for Game 7.
Oh wow, that's great. That's
ticket price because it was a single. Somebody was trying to sell one.
They're not going to sell it otherwise.
Yeah, how many people really go by themselves? And so I went to Game 7. The next year, I didn't win the lottery for the playoff rounds, although I did go to an ALCS game with my dad again. But I won the lottery for the World Series in 15.
Wow.
I bought tickets to all 4 games.
That's insane.
All 4 potential home games. Games 1, 2, 6, and 7.
Yeah.
I sold, but you only got charged if the game happened.
Okay.
So, you got charged up front, but they refunded you if the game didn't happen.
Right.
So I got games 1 and 2. I bought they knew those were going to happen. I sold Game 1, paid for my Game 1 and Game 2 tickets.
Nice.
So I had nothing in it. And Dad and I went to Game 2. And then I had done the same thing for Game 6 and Game 7, is that I sold Game 6 and it had paid for Game 7 and 6, like the tickets I bought. So because I won that lottery, I had nothing in those tickets.
Wow.
Now, Game 6 didn't happen. We won in 5 in New York, but it was but yeah, so that was just luck. I got lucky.
Hey, sometimes it works out, man. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's very cool that you even went. That's awesome, man. We're gonna have to talk baseball next season as that comes up again. So it was a. I'm glad.
Pitchers,
I'm glad that we had a season at all. I'm glad it worked out, and I'm glad football's working out to some degree. So hopefully we get through this.
They're done. They're halfway there. We'll see how it goes. So.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. I got one more question for you, and then we can we'll wrap things up here. Okay. When it comes to music, where do you stand? What are you currently listening to? Are you a music guy at all? Do you play any instruments or anything like that?
I'm not a huge music guy. I am not talented enough to play an instrument. Although, because I was a dummy, like the music teacher wanted to, when I was in high school, but I was into all the sports and everything. I played a bunch of sports, and he's like, you should play bass. He wanted to teach me to play bass, and I didn't take him up on it. Yeah. And I always regretted that. I probably should at some point, try to learn how to play, but I'm not too old yet. But I have very weird music taste in the fact that I like almost everything.
Okay. So that's the best way to go, man. It's the best way to go.
So if it's good from any genre, I typically like it. And how did that happen? My dad listens to country all the time, so I had to listen to that as a kid. So I got an appreciation for it. My mom was kind of soft rock, that kind of stuff. So if you're in the car with her, you got all that kind of stuff. And my sister was anything that was new or interesting or indie kind of stuff growing up. She was into all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. And then I got to college and I had some other friends that really got me into Radiohead and other kind, just kind of stuff that I'd never even really listened to, like beyond just rock and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then when I went to grad school, I'd never been a huge like rap, hip hop kind of guy. Like I'd like some of it, but never been huge into it. When I got to grad school, like my best friend in grad school was a guy from Memphis who listened to all, like a big, like 6'5" black guy. And, like,
Nice.
He was like just a great guy.
Yeah.
And like, no, this is real music. And he started like, he got me into all that stuff. So I can listen to almost anything if it's good. Like I like all types of music. I really do.
That's amazing, and I'm right there with you. I mean, I open, and it's funny because the way you mentioned your parents getting you into certain things, my mom basically brainwashed me into country music, so I'm big in country, and people are like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah," but it goes to kind of what you talked about with comic books, in that you're open to everything, and even now you're exploring all these indie books. Why? Because there's great stories in them, and you don't want to miss out on like hearing some of these great. I mean, that's why you read comics, right? Is to enjoy some of these great things. So.
I love the story.
Yeah. So I'm not surprised that it's cool that you're all in on good music, which is the best way to go.
I'm not like, I'm not. I do feel like as I've gotten older, I've kind of I just don't follow it as much. I don't really follow music that closely as I probably should. I listen to too much sports talk on the radio. So I do feel like my music tastes have become dated recently just because I don't follow it like I used to. It's not dated because I only like the stuff I liked from when I was younger. It's because I just don't follow what's newer. So
it's interesting you say it like that too, because I've kind of fallen into that same thing recently, kind of dating myself, and I've even more recently tried to make time for myself. Like on a Friday night with my girlfriend, we'll play card games or board games, and we will like go out of our way to kind of listen to something new, whether it's like, whether it's something old, but we never heard it, or something brand new, just to kind of explore once in a while, because you're right. It can kind of, especially when you're into sports talk radio, podcasting, YouTube stuff with comic books. Like the content, there's so much content. It's hard to find the time.
That's the one area that I've really fallen behind. This is because if I have free time, I'm watching you guys at the community on YouTube, or I'm watching a show on Netflix or Hulu, or I'm reading, or and it's just, the music is just something that's fallen by the wayside. I regret it, but I haven't figured out how to like work it back in.
It'll always be there for you, and there's always going to be new stuff, so it's not going anywhere. But cool, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, JP. This has been really cool to hear some of your background. Absolutely, man. If you let the people know real quick kind of where they can find you, a couple shows that you have coming up. I know you got a lot of things going on.
So JP's Budget Collecting on YouTube, JP Collects on Instagram. Those are basically, like, I have other social media. I don't ever go on any of the other stuff hardly at all. Instagram and YouTube's where you're going to find me. And I dropped the 6-month look back. So which I talked about that earlier, but if anybody doesn't know, basically I take the hot comics from 6 months ago, from this week 6 months ago, that are on the CBSI Hot Top 10, the Comic Tom, Key Collector, what's hottest trending, and I look and see how they've done in the 6 months since. And it really, that came from just trying to understand, like, for me, like, to make better choices of what's actually going to hold value and what's not. I dropped one of those today. I drop them every Saturday. I do a Sunday night, just ramble, the whatever show, whatever I feel like talking about on my YouTube. And then the other stuff doesn't really come on any kind of schedule. I do the indie show. Kavi and I do Gotham City Chronicles. Technically, I still do a show with Matt called Collecting Smart. We just haven't done one in forever because I've been really bad about it. And I also do I have some other stuff that I do occasionally that I haven't done much of lately. But yeah, that's most of what I'm in on YouTube and stuff. So yeah, if you're, hit me up on Instagram if you just want to talk and hang out. So
Very cool. And I did put your links down in the description below. So anybody watching this now or catching the replay and you guys are not following JP, make sure you go check out both his YouTube channel and his Instagram page for all that content there. And eventually, I know we're going to schedule something soon, but we'll have another round of Descender talk.
Yeah, I just haven't made the order yet. Like the next time I make an Instack Trades order, that's on the list. I just haven't made the order yet. So.
Yeah, man. It's I'm loving that stuff, man. I really am.
So good. I've enjoyed it. We'll have to talk. Well, because that one doesn't only got 3 more volumes of that, so we'll have to get you hooked up on something I try later.
Definitely, man. You let me know.
Comics.
Yep. Thank you, Alan. Comics and Pops, great show. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I did want to highlight this before Alan saying let's not talk about my Niners this week. It's been a rough go for the Niners.
Hat. So there you go. I was gonna go get it just to like annoy him.
Oh man. All right, guys. Well, everybody in the chat, guys, thank you so much for hanging out. Really appreciate your time and just hanging out and having fun with us. I'll be back again next Saturday. Keeping things going here. So until then, make sure you follow JP. JP, thanks again, man. I'll have to have you again soon. All right, guys. We will talk to you later.